I mean, first of all, why space rocks? Tell us the story behind that.
It goes quite a long way back, actually. It goes back to the Rosetta mission, which is one of ESA's big science missions in the last decade. There's such a huge interest in that mission, not only from people interested in science, but we had musicians, we had artists, we had filmmakers, all wanting to do something with us. When Alex came along and said that he would like to actually take that live and do some shows, that linking science and art and culture, that was something I'd always wanted to do as well.
I mean, this is a fascinating event. We have 12,000 people here visiting the Space Technology Center here in Noordwijk. Space is cool and space rocks. And I think this is really what you see now. There's so much happening everywhere, and people want to not only see it in TV, they want to touch it, they want to talk to experts, they want to get it explained. It's just heartwarming to see how much passion, energy and dedication goes into this.
Thank you very much. A real pleasure to be here in the Netherlands.
For us, of course, moonshots is our thing, and it's a word that has been invented for a mission that inspires people. People want to do this, so we are trying to do something that nobody did, and that requires a lot of effort.
Having crazy ideas and trying to bring them to life is almost our daily business.
What inspires you to use the world, the universe of Star Wars to explain space exploration?
So I studied a degree in science and science fiction. So I was always looking at the links between science and stories and science fiction. And I've always kind of been like that as a kid. When it got to the Star Wars, it was that we'd done a show. So we thought, let's do a show on the science of Star Wars, and subsequently a book as well. And so it all kind of came together in this wonderful opportunity to talk about science and different areas of science, but through the world of Star Wars.
Okay, well, first of all, Alistair, congratulations on receiving the very first Space Rocks Award ever, which is awesome. How does it feel?
Oh, it's wonderful, yeah. Just being part of Space Rocks is a real joy, but also on a day like today where there's so much sort of celebration of science and geek culture as well. It's right up my alley.
Are there times when science can get in the way of a good story?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, one of the things that I grapple with as a writer is how, I like telling stories on a kind of galactic canvas, interplanetary travel, and as soon as you start going down that alley, you sort of run up against Einstein, and he's sort of
he's always there,
he's in
isn't
the corner
he?
of the room wagging his finger saying, no, you can't do that, you can't have faster than light travel, even though it makes all sorts of stories nicer to tell.
Why do you want to go to space?
I think an important question is why not?
Okay, okay.
I want to go to space because personally there is a real will to go to space from a learning point of view, a curiosity point of view, challenge, adventure. But on the other side of that is to demonstrate that people with physical disabilities can do a whole range of things, and that the landscape for space exploration is changing. So to really communicate and get people talking about disability, get people talking about equality. The more we talk about it, the more opportunities that people with disabilities will have.
Of course, my interest as a human physiology researcher is also, what with humans. I mean, Erik already said, probably best not to go into space, but I mean, we're going to explore, we're going to go back to the moon, we're going to go eventually onto Mars.
Human beings are vulnerable and sensitive, so if we were exposed to the space environment, we wouldn't do very well.
We are in a squash court with Hugh and Matt, standing next to a monolith. How black is this thing? Because it almost plays with your eyes. It plays tricks, right?
Yeah, this was all part of the original thing. So, well, how black is, I mean, in the book, it's sort of really extremely black, you cannot see anything. It's supposed to be about, I think, 99.6% of the light gets absorbed. Wow. So I mean, if you have a really bright light and hold it against, you will see it.
Yeah.
But it's quite black.
Hello everyone, this is actually Alex with Space Rocks, and delighted to be joined by Ian Carnelli, the mission scientist for the HERA mission at the European Space Agency. Ian, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Delighted to see you. And, what are we hoping that the HERA mission is going to achieve?
So the HERA mission is a planetary defense mission. We want to prove that we can deflect asteroids and then protect planet Earth.
Why are asteroids so interesting and important to our own history?
So they are the oldest objects. Most of them are still pristine, like when the solar system formed. So looking at asteroids, really looking into the past and where we come from. That's why scientists are so interested about it.
Why are events like this, ESA opening up for a weekend and everything that Space Rocks does, why is it so important?
Space Rocks is so important about connecting people with space, okay? People who have a love of music, have a love of science, have a love of science fiction, coupled with what is on offer here at ESTEC.
It draws people in, come and hear about all the cool stuff we're doing in space. But while you're here, let's have a chat about things which are important on planet Earth as well. Of course, we have navigation satellites, Earth observation satellites, but even something like the James Webb Space Telescope can teach us very important things about how we're going to fix some of the problems here on Earth, even if it's just how teams work internationally over many decades, all invested in solving one very difficult problem.
Yeah, I think it's about bringing people together. I mean, not only the usual astrophysicists or the ones you work with, but also other kinds of people, young, old, from all over the world, actually.
And getting people excited about the wonderful world that is space.
Here at ESTEC you see everything. It's not just about the science directorate, it's about the technology development that's done. People like you, who's in that directorate, along with human spaceflight and Earth observation. It's just the whole smorgasbord of our activities showcased and basically saying thank you very much to the public. This is, thank you.
Space Rocks can go around, hopefully now throughout Europe as well, and take this kind of feeling to many more people.
Wait, okay.
We'll kick off with what I hope will be an easy question. Who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Lauren. My name is Dietmar Pilz. I am the head of this establishment here, ESTEC, and I'm also the head of the Directorate of Technology, Engineering and Quality, basically the engineering directorate of ESA.
It sounds like two very important jobs then.
Yes, but I'm actually, and unfortunately, only paid for one.
It's always the way. Right, so could you give us a bit more information about ESTEC? What is ESTEC?
So we always say ESTEC is the heart, the technical heart of ESA. So here at ESTEC, which is about 50% of the population, a bit more than of overall ESA, we are having the engineers. That's also why I have this double role. We have the engineers here. We have the project management of most of the missions here. So here is where we're starting the missions, where we're developing most of the missions, and where we are bringing the stuff together with industry, of course, and with all of our partners to the launch pad.
Wow, so over 50% of ESA as a whole are here. That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
That's amazing. I did not know that. Thank you. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about ESA itself. What is it? Give us an overview of that too.
I'm always saying ESA is a club with members. The members here are not human beings; they are states. We have 22 member states from Europe. That's the European Space Agency part, obviously. We have an associated member, which is Canada, and we have 4 members. One of them will be another member at the end of the year that will become members and are in a state to be to learn to become a member of ESA. So it's a step. The members they trust us, the so-called executive, with budget. Quite a large budget, to be honest. Inside Europe, we are managing more than half of all the space industry budget in Europe. and they trust us. And then we are, as I just said, from here, but also from other sites, performing the missions. We are creating the missions. We're defining the targets together with the scientists, and then we're carrying them out and executing them again with the industry that are involved always.
So with the support ultimately of so many members, that's so cool. So all I need to do is form my own country, and I can be a member. Okay.
Almost.
Give me some time. Yeah, I'll get it done. It's good.
I can already see that country coming along.
Yes, that's what I'm up to. Just taking over. Could you give us a bit of insight into, considering all of the member states and how ESA works, the importance of collaboration?
So collaboration is already it's imprinted, as I said, in this way of, I just called it a club. So this association, this organization, is an organization of many states. They of course have different interests. They for their industry, for their space ambitions. And therefore, to bring it forward, to bring Europe forward, and actually to have all of these fantastic missions, we need to collaborate. And this was clear from the very beginning. So collaboration throughout Europe, but then, of course, also beyond Europe, because some of the missions are so big, so expensive, so important for humankind, that we are, of course, working together with other agencies, NASA, JAXA, but also India or any other agencies around the world.
It makes sense. The vastness of the subject matter means that having as much support as possible. Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. Okay, so then tell us why ESA's Open Day is so important to everything you guys do.
So first of all, you just reacted. You just said a second ago that you didn't know that half of the ESA population is here at ESTEC. And we try to make this public, not the number of people, but what are we doing here? We want to show this. We want to showcase how many fantastic technologies are developed here, how many fantastic space missions are developed here. And we also would like to show, but don't tell all the volunteers, all the 700 volunteers, we will also want to show the people behind. And therefore, we're so happy that we have so many volunteers that want to showcase what they're doing here every day. They think it's so cool, it's so fantastic, they're so enthusiastic. They come here on a Sunday or a Saturday and show what they're doing in their daily business.
Awesome, I love it. And I guess you get a lot of kind of interaction with people that ordinarily wouldn't know anything that was going on behind the gates of ESA, and yet all of this amazing stuff is happening.
Absolutely. And for me, it's only the second time, but last year was really fantastic. You meet people that have maybe no contact so far to space, and they suddenly see what kind of possibility it is, how important it is, that it's in our everyday lives. So really, really great. And not only people, it's also the different ages of people. So we get kids with completely different views. And of course, they have very, very different important areas that they look at, which we don't look as adults. So it's really, really a lot of fun.
Oh, I love it. Dima, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Really appreciate it.
Lauren, very, very much appreciate it. Thank you as well.
Okay, easy one.
Okay, so
who are you and what do you do?
I am Alec and I work as a young graduate trainee at the Directorate of Navigation. I started my young graduate traineeship about 2 years ago now. So, yeah.
So this is a pretty incredible place to be,
yes.
You know, so early in your career, I guess. It's amazing.
Definitely. I think I'm lucky for being here, yes.
I'd say so. Well, I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say you're here because you're deserving of being here and you've worked very hard to be here, which is a different situation to luck altogether. How important is collaboration at ESA?
I think it's one of the most important pillars. I mean, for us, working together with also other space agencies such as NASA in the past, we have a very fruitful outcome, like the James Webb Telescope or the Cassini-Huygens mission. So yeah, I think it's one of the most important parts of ESA.
I'd say so. I mean, that's it. You're dealing with something that is not only enormous, but in some cases completely untouched, untracked. Like, how could one, even if ESA is across an entire continent, how could one thing ever kind of deal with that on its own?
Yeah, I think it's important to just collaborate for all kinds of scientific missions, because only for technology development we can foster it and we can make it better together. And it's better to have knowledge spillover, in my opinion.
Agreed. So what do you enjoy the most about working at ESA?
I think I enjoy just every part of it, let's say. Even the hard moments, even the over hours, let's say. But a lot of things are fun, and we still have a nice young community. And this is one of the most exciting parts of being in ESA, actually. And you can meet a lot of people, not just like young people, but also across directorates. It's also nice to have this kind of opportunity. And I don't think you have this everywhere. This is kind of a unique place to.
And I guess it's the passion that means that there's no barriers, right? You're talking to people about the thing that you love, and it doesn't matter where on the scale of their career.
That's what connects us in the end. Yeah,
love it.
All of us are here for that one mission, and it's really nice.
Oh, I love it's a mission. You're right. I love it. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so how important is Open Day, which is what we're here for this weekend?
Open days are for me, one of the most important days, I would say. I mean, it's the most exciting day in ESA when you join the agency. Before, I didn't know that much about like how exactly ESA was. But before I came to ESA, I went to the open days as well. And that really even like enhanced more my excitement for working here. So I would say like it's a very inspiring moment, and I think for everyone should come and like see this.
And that's it. I mean, what's so cool about it is that it's not just about come and see some cool space stuff, but it's about saying we're here, we're a part of your community too, and we want to be collaborating even, you know, on a very local level, which is really cool.
Yeah, actually that's also one of the most beautiful things, because everyone around this in Netherlands, maybe they don't know about us, but they're close to us, so it's nice that they can also have a chance to come and see what's going on here, what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, what are you most looking forward to over the open weekend?
Oh, well, I think I'm really looking forward for the inspiring figures, like to meet them. And for me, always as a space sci-fi fan, I liked meeting like astronauts or and hopefully people who are going to be there are the ones who went to space already. So that's for any human, I think, one of the most exciting parts.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. We're here with Greg. Hey, Greg, could you tell us, first of all, what you do here at ESA?
Well, here at ESA, we're studying really the effect of radiation and plasma on the spacecraft, on astronauts, on the Earth, and reaching down to the surface, basically. Trying to observe the sun, put everything in mathematical models, run big models, big computers, and then try to predict what's going to happen in a few days so that we can basically, well, avoid any terrible effect.
Wow, that sounds pretty serious.
Yeah.
Some serious stuff. Okay, tell us what's going on right here, right now.
It's basically trying to recreate the history of what's happening when we try to observe the sun. What you've got here is basically the sun observed in 2 wavelengths. That's a basic camera with a basic filter. And that's what you see here. It's the sunspots. That's what Galileo and Kepler could observe already 400 years ago. And 400 years ago, they already understood, wait, like these spots on the sun, it's moving. It's moving also because the sun is rotating. I guess they understood that, but also it's moving like farther or closer to the equator. And they realized when observing seriously and continuously the sunspots for the past 100 years that there's like cycles. And sometimes the spots are far from the equator, sometimes they're closer. And when they're closer, there's much more of them. And by plotting that over time, you can see that these are the so-called solar cycles. They happen every 11 years. Sometimes they're more intense, sometimes they're less intense. And right now in 2024, we're at the peak of the solar cycle. So what it means is that it's the right moment to go north and try to see some auroras, basically. The nice effect of this of the space weather storms, basically.
Okay, we will start at the start. Who are you, lovely ladies, and what do you do?
Shall I go?
Yeah, go for it.
So, hi, I am Benedetta. I am a young graduate trainee, also called like a YGT. Here at ESA, I work on future Mars missions as a system engineer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And my name's Aura. I'm also a YGT, and I work on Galileo. I do legal analysis for it.
Oh my gosh, my brain has just exploded. I'm so, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Okay, so, I mean, to me, this feels like a silly question because you could either answer it very short or talk about it forever, and either way would be perfect. But what do you enjoy the most about working at ESA? Up to you guys, who goes first?
You go.
Okay. I think part of it is being surrounded by so many brilliant people. Like everything you do, there's always someone who is like an expert in their field. And all the things I'm doing are super interesting. All the things I'm getting involved with as well. So it's just all around amazing with amazing colleagues as well.
Fab. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Aura said. I also do enjoy the internationality that there is around ESA, that you can meet people from everywhere. And it's beautiful because you connect also different cultures, and that's super important for me, also in the workplace in which I am. So I really do enjoy that. And I really do enjoy the fact that I can work on something that it's like so beyond, like Mars, wow. And yeah, wow, I don't think that I would be able to do this anywhere else. So, yeah.
Well, it kind of, your answers neatly led me on to my next question. So, sticking with you, Benedetta, what would you say is, what's the most important thing when it comes to the collaboration? What are you gaining from that? How important is it, I guess, from ESA's collaboration?
It is like super important because I do think that I could not do my job if it was not for my team, for the help of my supervisor, for all of the experts that are around that are super knowledgeable in everything. So I think it is very, very important that we share the different backgrounds that we have as well, so that we can like work towards the same success together. Which,
yeah, nice. Would you like to answer as well?
Yeah, I think collaborating with each other, we just learn from each other. We each bring our own unique perspective, and that makes the overall project just that much higher, that much better.
And what would you say is the most important thing about the wider collaboration? So the member states and how all of that kind of feeds into what you guys are doing on a daily basis?
To me, it really does affect how the project is shaped, and if my project, like the project that I'm working on goes forward or not, because I work in early phase missions. So of course, the different collaboration between member states and the different choices that are made by the member states totally do influence which project go forward or not. So
yeah, I hadn't thought about that. What I really love about talking to you both about this is my background couldn't be more different. I work in the games industry, and yet there are so many points that I think, oh, that's just like us. Oh, that's just like us. The collaboration, the diversity, like bringing, diversity of story as well as diversity of human, just to kind of get all these different things that then make the most wonderful greater good, I love. Okay. Let's jump to Open Day. How important is Open Day to what ESA's doing?
I think it's really important in bringing awareness to the public of all the different projects that are going on that are not always advertised. And so when the public comes to ESA, they see all the things that people are working on, which is, I think, not only really cool, but also very important in raising awareness about everything.
And the scale, right? And not just the scale of what they're looking at, but the scale of the amount of people that have been involved in it and the teams and everything. Standing next to some of the machines that I got to stand next to last year was just insane. You can't imagine where they even came from, let alone that they're in orbit at some point. It's magic. What are you most looking forward to over the weekend then?
I am looking forward to the questions that I'm gonna get, the enthusiasm of the audience, and I'm looking forward to be able to show to everyone that like the space sector is closer to them than they think. Because we do think that it's like so far away and so impossible to attain, to arrive to it, but actually like we're here. So
yeah. So, something I've noticed, it's like space is hardwired into little boys, and then they seem to lose it, and then everyone we grow up and we forget how much we loved it. As you know, there are plenty of little girls that love space too, but it does seem to be a boy thing. But yeah, it's astounding. Another thing that really blew my mind last year was seeing the amazement on those children's faces as they were wandering around and just having their minds blown. Glorious. Okay, one more. Let's do one more question. What do you like the most about Open Day?
Well, that will be difficult to answer. This is my first Open Day.
No way! Oh, that's so exciting. What are you most potentially excited about over the weekend?
I think it's seeing the areas of ESA I don't usually have the chance to go to. So it will be very interesting to wander around, especially with all the public and all the enthusiasm going on. And yeah, I've really enjoyed preparing the Open Days so far.
Awesome. Bernadette, what is your kind of most loved thing that you've seen at Open Day, having come to previous years?
It is also my first Open Day. So,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, you guys, I'm the most experienced one on this panel all of a sudden. Oh, this is exciting. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us, and I can't wait to bump into you over the weekend and see the awe on your faces too. Wonderful. All right, so first things first, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Gaëtan Piret, I'm head of the test center division here, and I'm in charge directing the people testing the satellite for ESA.
So a very important job.
Very important in the space domain.
Things. Absolutely. Okay, well, what kind of things happen here at the test center? It sounds like a very obvious question, but what are the details of what's going on behind these doors?
So when developing a satellite, before sending to space, you have to make sure that it's working. And what means working? It means that it has to resist to the launch, the vibration and the noise of the rocket, and you have to resist in the space condition. We're trying to reproduce this condition here and submitting every single satellite before launch to this.
Wow, that's so cool. What are you looking forward to the most over Open Day weekend?
We are really happy to show our unique facility. They're unique in Europe. Many people are keen to see them. Only once a year they can come along. So it's always a pleasure to explain and see the people how impressed they are by the facility that we have.
Yeah, I was here last year, and I think one of the, aside from all of the astounding things that I saw, there was real joy in seeing children walk around this space and just watching them explode in awe. It's wonderful. It must be a real joy for you guys to get to open up and have people coming and going and interacting.
Yeah, and it's impressive the number of questions that the young children have already.
I bet.
And really amazing questions that we are not expecting usually, and then we are confronted to questions and they are very happy to be here.
Can you remember any? What's the most ridiculous, the most out there one that you've had, if you can remember?
Oh, I don't remember. There's so many. We're seeing thousands of people in a day, so I don't remember that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye.
Give us a cheer if you're a fan of The Expanse. So give us a cheer if you're a fan of science in The Expanse. Okay, so we've got a brilliant panel on. So I would like to welcome onto the stage the one and only Steve Strait, who is an actor and producer of The Expanse, and you might know as Captain James Holden. And if you'd like to know what it feels like about floating around in space, then our next guest is your man, which is Neil Melville, who is a parabolic flight trainer. And hands up if you remember that first ever image of a black hole. Yes. So Sarah Markov is our third and final panelist on the show, and she was behind the Event Horizon telescope. Okay, I think we're going to fly through this. So many questions. So I guess, Steve, first question for you is, how did you prepare for your role of Captain James Holden in terms of like understanding the scientific concepts in The Expanse?
Sure.
You know, we're talking about artificial gravity, space travel.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you know, we had the incredible privilege of having a showrunner who was a physicist. And the authors made a point of making sure that the science was all correct. So we had a few different advisors that we spoke to, a gentleman from NASA, and then working with the dance choreographer to make the zero gravity look correct, because the wires are, they're very helpful in showing it, but it's very difficult to make it feel effortless. So a lot of physical training to make that a reality, to keep the magic there.
And when you get those first scripts through, is it like, was it really clear that you're like, okay, they're taking the science really seriously of this, like we're doing this properly?
Yeah, and you know, because I came in as a fan, you know, I had read the books before I even knew they were being adapted. It meant a lot to me that they were going to really try to do that. You know, at the time, I mean, it was in the very beginnings of streaming, and it was a very ambitious thing to be able to put on screen and to shoot at the pace that you do on television. So I loved the ambition of that, and we had this incredible team, and if anybody was going to be able to pull it off, it was going to be them. So I was just along for the ride.
Yeah, okay. And Neil and Sarah, obviously you're scientists, but you're also mega fans of the show. So,
absolutely.
Like,
Very
what,
much.
Yeah. So like watching it, were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I mean, just blown away by how accurate it all seems, how kind of plausible it all is, right down to the ship designs. I mean, so much sci-fi, you know, they have ships flying like this with people standing, walking on them. The Expanse is the other way around, right? Because you're using the acceleration of the engines to keep everyone against the floor. So all the sets are small with ladders in a stack, just as it would actually be. And that kind of attention to detail is quite captivating for engineers and scientists that you know, understand how it would really work. Sure. You see something that gets it, and it's really engaging.
And how about you, Sarah? Were there any standout moments that you're like, oh my gosh? Like,
well, I mean, just in general, as you're saying, like as a scientist, we're so annoying, right? When we watch these things and we take everything apart. And I will not name other shows, but some haven't done it as well. And it was so satisfying. I mean, I study, you know, black holes and space-time. So for me, it was really intriguing about the gate technology, and maybe we can talk at some point about the slow zone. But, you know, it's just, you can watch it and you can believe it. Of course, we don't understand the theories behind these things yet, but it was presented, I think, in such an amazing way that a scientist who even studies this stuff could, like, leave their brain in instead of at the door.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, for you, Steve, like, how did your appreciation for science change over the course of the show?
Oh my goodness! I mean, you know, it was something I've always been interested in and curious by, but in digging into it the way that you do, you know, as an actor, it was just a remarkable experience. Just moving through this with Naren Shankar, our showrunner, you know, as a guiding hand, to be able to truly understand just how arduous and how hard all of this is. And, you know, for us as storytellers, having space be a hostile environment and to be able to show it accurately allows us that dramatic fulcrum, you know, towards the middle of season 3, where the physics do change a bit, and it does allow that next gear in the storytelling. So making it feel accurate and seem accurate was paramount to making the show work.
What were some of those moments that were like, okay, this is actually really hard?
Sure, yeah. I mean, frankly, the original stuff that we really had to kind of wrap our heads around was the zero gravity stuff and the wire work. And oftentimes when you see it in a film done accurately, they have a lot of time to be able to shoot that. And we're shooting very quickly on a television show. So having a system in place to be able to do that was key. But just in terms of the understanding of just how hard it is to be in space, and the incredible engineering that's needed. And so many of the characters in the show, whether it's Naomi Nagata or Amos, I mean, they're these incredible engineering minds. And Holden really relies on them for most of the technical answers. But yeah, an incredible appreciation of just how hard it is. I mean, incredible stuff, incredible people.
I mean, so full disclosure, you and Neil have worked together before.
Yes,
so,
we did. Yes, we did. Yeah.
So Space Rocks, for anyone that hasn't seen on YouTube, there is a series which is you experiencing parabolic spaceflight. So what was that experience like? And then we'll go on to sort of how that happens and your role, Neil.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to describe it in words, the feeling of zero gravity. For so many years we'd been emulating it and thinking about it and trying to show it as it actually is, and it's there built into your subconscious after a certain amount of time. When we got there, it was this very strange thing to be able to feel the techniques we were doing that were so hard while we were shooting it actually work in this very elegant way. And I was like, oh my God, it really works. It really works.
This was obvious seeing you do it. I mean, I've had the privilege of introducing probably hundreds of people to zero G, and most of them have the decency to freak out a bit. You were just so, you responded to the unusual sensation, but then so quickly in the first parabola, you did a couple of completely subconscious movements to orient yourself at the camera and started talking like, what? Wow. It took the rest of us a long time to get that. So maybe we need to take some of this, method acting stuff and start training our astronauts with it. Because I've honestly never seen anyone take to it quite like Steven did. It was really remarkable.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I mean, how often are you in zero G, Neil?
Sorry?
How often are you in zero G?
I'm very lucky. I get to fly on all of the ESA scientific flights, which normally we're there for science, we're there for technology, we're there for training astronauts. And we do about 9 flights of that per year, but each one has 31 parabolas. So yeah, I get to spend quite a long time, maybe an hour and a half a year in zero G or something. The best you can get without being an astronaut, I reckon.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
Yeah. And can you talk us through very briefly, because what is microgravity? How are you creating that, or
okay.
that,
Well, basically, all you need to be weightless is really to be free to fall. So the trick is, when we kind of throw the plane up in the air with the engines as hard as we can, and then they cut back on the throttle to let go. So they've kind of thrown us, and we fall on this parabolic arc, just as if we're in space, just as if we're in an orbit. But we would normally be slowed down by the air drag, but they use just a little bit of engines to counteract that, and they're trying to fly the plane around us without touching us, really. They're pretending we're in space, we're free falling around this orbit, and try not to touch us with the plane, and we can only do it for 22 seconds, because that's how fast you end up near the maximum speed of the aircraft. Then you've got to pull out, which is why we do it multiple times. But as long as you are free to fall, and everything around you is falling at the same time, then you're not pulled up, you're not pulled down, you're not pulled side to side. That's what being weightless is. And it's exactly the same weightlessness as in orbit, but their parabola is much bigger, so it keeps missing the Earth. That's the only difference. They're going so fast sideways, they keep missing the Earth. We only have a plane, we can't do that, so we just do 20 seconds at a time.
Yeah. Sarah, would you want to experience that?
I mean, definitely. So if they ever need to send like a small physicist into space, you know, unfortunately I was too small to make the astronaut cut. My eyes were too bad. But, you know, hopefully they'll film seasons in space and we can all like go up and just do this as, you know, non-pros. We can ask
love that.
But, you know, I think one of the things you mentioned actually in your filming for Space Rocks with Steven was the fact that relativity came out of exactly that. You know, Einstein was thinking about the fact that you can transform gravity away in certain frames, and that was sort of the beginning of his thinking about it. So for me, it's great to see, you know, that it's handled by the physics as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to experience it very much. So yeah, volunteer.
Yeah. And what would you say were some of the more challenging concepts, or are there any concepts that, or moments that really surprised you to see on the series that you're like, oh yes, Sarah's first.
Talk about the slow zone.
Yeah, go on.
So, you know, just for those who haven't seen the show, maybe you want to give a little story about it, but I would...
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler.
Spoiler
Come on, it's
alert.
been out for a while. You should watch it. But maybe I would love to hear a bit about how you, as the producer, and, you know, also the team thought about making this concept come in, and also the ideas that you discussed, because, you know, this would be very difficult to do if you were an alien.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for the slow zone and for the ring gates, I mean, one, as we were saying before, is to make sure that the science was accurate up until that point was key, because if you don't do that, then there is no dramatic payoff when it does change. But I remember I talked to a high school in Brooklyn a couple years ago about, we were using the show to talk to STEM students. And we were saying, you know, a whole episode on paper, if you show it to an executive, it's like, oh, this is about deceleration. They're like, excuse me? What is this? You're going to shoot an episode about deceleration? It's like, well, actually, when things stop on a dime in the slow zone, when things freeze, it's a disaster. Yeah. It's a disaster that happens. I mean, the slingshotter kid, I mean, all this kind of stuff. So, you know, the actual science of it provides dramatic opportunity. And that was something we really leaned into the entire time. But having the slow zone and having a bit of magic come where, you know, we can't quite explain everything, that's where having someone like Narain, you know, is so important about the whole thing, is to keep us honest the entire way through. And visualizing all of that was an incredible creative payoff for us as artists, and thinking about it and thinking about what that looks like, what that feels like, what that means for us dramatically as storytellers. So, you know, for all of that, it was, and even for like Holden connecting the circuit, you know, and visualizing what 1 billion years of a civilization could mean. What does that look like? What does that feel like? You know, all of the playing around with stuff like that is what makes it such a fun job, you know.
I was thinking a lot, you know, especially in preparation for this, you know, if you could control the rings, and of course, effectively you have to harness the power of black hole. I mean, most people agree this would have to be some kind of wormhole technology, which, spoiler alert, we don't actually know exists, but something that we're quite interested in. But, you know, the idea of slowing something down like a low bandpass filter, where you're sort of putting a velocity that you can't go faster than, but light can still go faster. There's a real trick in that, that, you know, we can slow light down using materials now. We know how to do that, and if you're near a black hole, you slow time down, and so you can slow light down as well. The rules change. But somehow there's this, you know, way of loopholing it that I think is really well captured in the show.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And did you consult any like scientists or other people, academics, like for the development of the role of Holden?
For Holden himself, I mean, you know, actually someone I did talk to, just in terms of the psychology of being on a ship in a small space for a long period of time. I spoke to someone who served on a submarine for 6-7 months. Because at the time, prior to getting onto the show, we didn't have access to, you know, astronauts to speak to or whatever. So I thought it was the closest kind of comp that I could imagine, because, you know, mostly as actors, we're working with psychology. That's really kind of what we're working with at any given time. So I wanted to understand what the psychological framework of someone who's comfortable in those places with a hostile environment around them, what that would be, and what it would take to want to be down there and command a ship, you know, like that. So yeah, I mean, prep, research, all of that stuff is incredibly important to being able to trick yourself into believing that you can do that and that you're there. Because if I can trick myself, I can hopefully trick you that you also feel the same.
And when you see characters now in, experiencing zero G and stuff like that, what's your reaction to that? Do you think about your experiences at work, or is there anything else that it takes?
You mean when I see it on the screen?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible for me to, like, as Sarah said, scientists watching TV and movies were always picking this stuff apart and asking all the difficult questions. So whenever I see any zero G on screen, I can't help but like, is it
Where are the
wires? Is it CGI? How are they doing that? And actually, the Expanse is one of the few that it was genuinely really hard to tell. The giveaway often is like puffy face syndrome, where because of the fluid shift that you have, but that requires people to be a bit more less lithe than Steven, perhaps. You don't have a puffy face in zero G. Now I've seen this, so it doesn't tell. The other giveaway is the posture.
Right.
People pretending to be in zero G tend to have their arms like here.
Yes.
And it's actually like here,
much
isn't
higher,
it?
much higher.
As you found out.
Yeah.
So that was going to be one of the things I was wondering. Like now, having had the experience, if you went back to do the Expanse or more of the Expanse, what would you take from it? What would you do differently?
Yeah, the height of the arms is a key one. I mean, we did try to do that. We did cheat it a little bit where, some of the astronauts we did talk to, season 2, once the show got going, we had access to a few more people. You oftentimes see astronauts up in space with their arms crossed.
Because this looks stupid.
Because it looks a little funny, right? So, like, if you'll notice, Holden is often with his arms crossed.
Was that intentional?
That was intentional.
Oh, very good.
That was intentional. I called it early, so no one else is doing it. Or, people are generally holding on to something. So that was all thought about.
And no one with long hair, really, or it was always tied back.
Oh, except for the first episode.
Yes.
With Julie Mao. So because the visual effects for that is very, very expensive, right? So if everybody's got floating hair, it jumps the VFX budget, through the roof. So everyone's got their hair tied back. Or
That's one of the things that sold it, though, because those first episodes with Julie Mao established it looking so fantastic.
Yes.
And then the wire work was almost indistinguishable. You're like, wait, hang on, but they can't have done Julie Mao with wires.
Right, and she ties her hair back in shot.
Yeah.
With her hair, in zero gravity. So, little camera tricks and storytelling tricks to kind of sell it and establish ourselves in real science before we move into the show.
And I'm interested to know, have you two got any questions for Steven as well? Yeah, I mean, it's Sarah's itch. You go for it.
We kind of got started, but, I think you're clearly such a method actor, right? I mean, this is your training. So as scientists, I think it's so interesting for us to see how did this change or evolve your views on science, on the universe, your curiosity, how you interact with science, and maybe even if you do talk to the other fellow actors, how has this evolved your past in this way? And you're doing science advocacy. Say some things about this.
Science advocacy and STEM outreach is so important, not just for where we're going, but for really urgent issues we're dealing with today, with climate or what have you. But for us, understanding how we are moving these stories forward in an accurate way is so key to telling the story itself and to being able to sell it in ways that hopefully do inspire, that hopefully do reach folks. I mean, I could never have imagined that it would reach literally into space. I mean, when I got a call last December that Andreas wanted to speak to me, it was like, I'm sorry, excuse me, like what? Yeah. I'm pinching myself. I'm like, really? You never know where those things might hit, and and in thinking about just every season I went in, I just had a much deeper and deeper respect for just how difficult and hard and creative science is, and so by the end of the show, I'm by no means a scientist, but I certainly have a deep love and appreciation for it, and and it's part of the reason why I like to do STEM outreach and that. So I really got that inspiration from doing the show itself.
I mean, many of us, I have to say for myself, like, I became a scientist really through science fiction. You know, I didn't come from a family that did that sort of thing, so science fiction, listen up, is the gateway drug to science. So please get your kids reading science fiction and watching The Expanse. They're going to
Same here, absolutely. Yeah. Science fiction as a kid got me into it.
And life imitates art, right? And
Yes,
so I think
yes,
you,
yes, it does. And you know, and so much about The Expanse is about humanity, and it's about, you know, are we bringing all of us out there with us? You know, all the good, maybe some of the bad. How do we course correct? You know, and how do we thoughtfully go into space? How do we thoughtfully move forward? How do we thoughtfully evolve? You know, and it really is a kind of meditation on that.
Yeah. And I think the fans are very important to The Expanse.
We owe the whole show to them, like quite literally. I mean, people do say that, but we really do owe the show to them, and they saved us. They saved us, and we always adored and loved our fans. But you know, once we only got a lifeline because of them, and you know, it was really dedicated the last 3 seasons in whole to them, and you know, we felt a measure of gratitude that was so deep and so meaningful. And you know, as an artist, it's the greatest feeling in the entire world to know that your work has touched folks out there, and that they're fighting for you. They're fighting for your show. They're fighting for the work to continue. And yeah, it was incredibly moving. It was the most moving experience I've ever had as a creative person. And so thank you for that there in the front. I see you. Yeah.
And do you find that most of your fans are people who work in STEM or have a passion for that?
Many do. Yeah, many do. I had this wonderful experience just a couple of weeks ago. This lady who I think she's in her 80s. She was a teacher of math at a local college. Had come up to me and told me how much she loved the show, and she's like, "The math is correct." I was like, "Thanks." Thank you. I didn't do any of it, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people are. A lot of people are interested in the STEM sciences for the show and for the fan base.
And are there any things within The Expanse that you wish that you had here at ESA, you know, and any technologies?
Ringgate.
An Epstein drive.
I mean, so much of the technology in The Expanse is you know, far advanced, but we're starting to work towards it. It's a privilege to be working on the parabolic flights where some of these technologies come into play, especially because we don't just do 0G, we can also do Moon G, Mars G. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to do them with you that time.
Sure.
So we really are starting to test technologies that are going to enable lunar colonization, they're going to enable Mars exploration and eventual colonization. So I would love to end up with some of that technology, you know, to enable the first kind of self-sustaining colonies on the Moon and on Mars. This would be the best thing from The Expanse to come, maybe not quite in our lifetimes, but as soon as possible. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. And I really hope that we've got time for just a few questions. So does anyone have a question for the team? Hand straight up.
There's one in the back.
Right at the back. Sorry, Tim.
It's a question for Steven. The Expanse is so many people's favorite sci-fi show ever.
Thank you.
Mine too.
Thank you.
But I'm curious, what are your other favorite sci-fi shows and movies?
Sure. I was a huge sci-fi, still am, fan. Early Ridley Scott has my heart, you know, whether it's Alien or Blade Runner. Yeah, early Ridley Scott. I mean, and very influential on the aesthetic of The Expanse as well. You know, very much that kind of blue-collar, working-class view of space exploration, and the folks, you know, the engineers working within the ship's depths is where we stay. So yeah, I'm a huge science fiction fan, and you know, even for thinking about Holden, Ripley was really the biggest kind of character comp that I was thinking about, and Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of that is, to me, is still the greatest protagonist in science fiction.
Any other questions? Oh, we'll go right here at the front, this gentleman with the glasses.
Hey, again, a question for Steven. regarding the potential other 3 seasons of The Expanse. I'm sure you get this a lot, but I would be remiss if to not asking, and if it ends up being happening, how would you guys handle the time jump?
That's a very good question. It's a very difficult question. You know, it would depend, honestly. You know, and if we are so fortunate to have the chance to do the next 3, I have no doubt that Narain, Ty and Daniel collectively is James S.A. Corey, who wrote the books. You know, we've always relied and trusted on their guidance in terms of the adaptations. They're beloved books for a reason, so we want to honor that in the best way that we can. So if we ever did get the chance to do another 3, we would rely on them again to be able to honor those books and do them the right way that at least captures the spirit of what they are. So.
Yeah. Where can we fly a plane to get that done?
We need one more plane.
We've got time for one more. Yes, let's go this guy over here.
Seeing the backdrop of Jules Pierre Miao in The Expanse, what's your opinions on private versus public exploration of space? And yeah, that's
Sure.
actually to all 3 of you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think it's a really interesting question, and you know, so much of The Expanse is a meditation on how are we bringing all of us to space, including all of our flaws, and it's something I think we need to be really thoughtful about in terms of, you know, how we regulate what's going on there. We make sure it's a human endeavor. You know, I think one of the most inspirational things that I've learned in speaking with astronauts over the years is just the perspective that it gives them, being up there looking down on our beautiful jewel of a place. There's no countries and borders and things, and I think there's this perspective, that kind of pale blue dotness, if you will, of that seems to really resonate with folks who have been up there, and I think it's very important that we be thoughtful with the steps forward, so we don't repeat the same mistakes we have all through our history. You know, so much. I was asked a lot during The Expanse because, in many ways, it's a story. It's a political allegory as much as anything else. If we were talking about modern day, and the answer is no, is that the authors are writing about history. It just happens that we repeat and repeat and repeat. And you know, the story of The Expanse is breaking the cycle. That is the victory of The Expanse. So in that, you know, I think it's very important that we stay very mindful and thoughtful as we keep stepping out into the solar system and hopefully beyond.
You had something?
I mean, sure, you know, I think about this a lot. You know, I'm more of a fundamental scientist, but we work a lot with corporations, and of course, I'm hoping that I will be flown into space, as I've said many times, at some point. But, you know, I think corporations, private corporations, have an important place and to drive the technology.
Sure.
But, you know, like you were saying, we don't want to do this in an irresponsible way. And I think we maybe are at risk of doing that at the moment because it's kind of a free-for-all at the moment, and we need to have regulations. We need to think about, I mean, space is not something that should be owned, you know, by any country. It's something like maritime law.
Right.
That we need to have an agreement about how this benefits, you know, humanity, doesn't ruin other environments as well. And I think a lot about another science fiction author, probably many of you have read, like Kim Stanley Robinson, wrote The Ministry of the Future. What he talked about was the fact that our profit system can be made profitable, but thinking about profiting on the future surviving. You know, keeping it going in a way that benefits people. And I think if we can go into space with that attitude, private and public together, I think it can work quite well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And that's it for the end. But please make a round of applause.
All right.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, y'all.
We have had an action-packed morning here at Space Rocks at ESTEC's ESA Open Day. thank you to all of you for joining us, for being in the stream, for being interested. We really, really appreciate it. We've had some fascinating discussions with some incredible people, and there's more to come. So, before we go any further, a little reminder that it's not all been about rocket science. We've also given a Space Rocks Inspiration Award to Steven Strait and the team at the Expanse, so hang around to catch that.
To hand that to you, so thank you very much, Steven.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I don't know if there's anything you would like to say before we close out.
On behalf of the Expanse and everybody who worked on it, it's an incredible honor to be a part of the show and to be a part of the learning.
We're here at ESTEC and we have managed to secure quite the interview. This is Mickey, the space cat. Mickey, how are you? Oh wow, I think we've upset him. Okay, well, why don't we just jump straight into it? What would you say is the hardest part of running ESA? Okay, and do you find that you spend a lot of time training the astronauts for stress relief? What are your main tactics? And what are you more interested in? The vastness of space, but are you interested in the moon or Mars, or is it just about chasing satellites for you? And finally, just one more question. Are you aware you're a cat? Mickey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay, we are here at the Space Rocks stage at ESA's Open Day at ESTEC, and we are joined by the incredibly well-known André. How you doing?
Excellent.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes, I'm very pleased. We had a fantastic week with a lot of astronauts here at ESTEC with technical sessions. So we learned a lot about all the different space agencies, what Japan is planning. India was there, one of the new players in space. So that was very interesting. We learned a lot about the problems that we had with Starliner, for example. So this is the technical part of it. What the Dutch space industry is doing, because we have it now at ESTEC, so we always have the host country talking also about the national space plans. And then a very important part is, of course, outreach. Mm-hmm. We have the famous Community Day, where the astronauts go into the country, all kind of places, schools, universities, companies, to talk with all the people there and to spread the word, to show how important spaceflight is, that we need it every day, and that it's fun to go into technology and science. This is what we do, and people like the story of space. I myself as well. I mean, when I was a kid and there was an astronaut coming somewhere, I went there because it was magic, you know. And so people have open eyes, open ears, open mouth. Yeah. Wow, what's happening? And then you can put the message in. Hey, this is all science, it's all technology, this is fun. This is what we do, and it was very successful. So I'm very pleased.
Wonderful. I'm very pleased to hear it. Well, along the topic of collaboration, I was watching your talk earlier with the other incredibly important people that you were joined on stage with, and it made me wonder, like, how much do agencies, space agencies across the world, how much do you share? Do you still keep secrets, or is it very much an open door?
Well, we share a lot. This is all non-military. Otherwise, you know, the military stuff, it's secret. I understand that the Pentagon has more money for spaceflight than NASA has. So all the spy satellites, etc. So, but the cooperation that we do in science and technology, that's very open, because you have to trust each other, you have to rely on each other. The International Space Station, it's one thing. So we know what the others are doing, because you're depending on each other's energy resources or the engines to move away from space debris. So it's one thing.
That's cool.
And it's also the only place where we still work closely together with our Russian colleagues. But every Russian rocket, there's an American on board, and the other way around.
That's
so
awesome.
That we always have the two sides on board of the space station. So international cooperation doesn't go very well if you have a lot of secrets. So we share. Absolutely, also for safety reasons, but also scientific. We exchange the information that we get among scientists as well. Maybe you have an American space shuttle mission, example in the past where I worked on before I became an astronaut. You have scientists from all kind of different countries, and I was a scientific coordinator before I became an astronaut. And one of the tasks was to see how they could share the data. The scientist from Sweden who once measures something, but the one from France measures something, but they can use each other's data.
Awesome.
So you had this data matrix. So everybody, it was a win-win situation. So everybody came out even better than they anticipated.
And you mentioned India being the new kids on the block. Is there any initiation ceremony that you're maybe not sharing that we could talk about? Do you, I don't know, get them in nice little outfits and have a party? Like, what do you guys do when someone joins? It can't happen that often.
Well, we had this congress. It was from the Association of Space Explorers. This is an independent thing. It started in the Cold War between Soviet cosmonauts and Apollo astronauts, to be above the politics, to show this is for everybody, this is for our planet. So if you want to become a member of that association, you have to make at least one orbit around the planet. That's the requirement.
There's
rules.
A basic. I like that.
Basic requirement is one orbit around the planet. In the beginning, these were professional astronauts from NASA, Roscosmos, ESA. But nowadays we also have commercial companies and people who pay their own tickets. They fly with SpaceX Crew Dragon.
Gosh, well, I guess we better wrap up. It's starting, it's kicking off again, but thank you so much for joining us. Well, fresh from the Space Rock stage, we are joined by the most wonderful Annalie Fischer. Anna, hi.
Hi, so glad to be here.
It's lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much. I just have a few questions, I promise. I would quite happily nerd out all day, but I'm going to keep it small. So, honestly, my first question, as a mother myself, I've been in the Netherlands for 4 days, and to prep for that, as far as my partner looking after a toddler, was extensive. So how did you go about prepping a family of 2 to function without you?
Well, you always worry about your child when someone else is taking care of them. But I was so fortunate. I found a wonderful woman, Susie Galvin, who we're still good friends today. And so I knew she would take good care of him. My husband stepped up to the plate and was really a really good dad, especially those last few weeks. And then the very last few weeks, last 6 weeks, my mom came. And I knew with my mom there, Kristen was in good hands and things would be okay.
It must have been, just the prospect would be terrifying, let alone the reality of it. It's astounding.
Leaving her was the hardest thing I've ever done. But, if you have a dream, I felt a responsibility both to myself for my dream, but also because I was very fortunate to be in that first group of women, that I honored that responsibility for the people who came after me. And I didn't set out to do it for that reason, but since the situation was there, I wanted to show that women could have a baby and you could do a demanding career and you could make it work.
We can have it all. Right. There's just a lot of planning and preparation that has to go into it.
And I always say you can have it all, but maybe not all at the same time. You might have to, pace things a little differently. Certainly when my second daughter was born, I decided to take a leave of absence for a while so I could be home with them, but I always intended to come back because I love what I do.
Of course, yeah, amazing. So how do you go about integrating a career like yours with a personal life? Especially when you're getting to the point of mission training and you're having to be more and more involved on the work side of things.
It gets harder and harder as you get busier and busier. So I kind of always said I have a lot of number one priorities. I just figure out what's number one at the moment, at this moment, I'm talking to you, and that's going to be number one. The minute that's over, and you know you're a mom and your child is doing something, you're going to be on the phone talking to them or whatever. It's just juggling who's number one at the moment.
Oh, I love. Okay, so how, in your opinion, how is the role of parents, I suppose, in SpaceX changed? Is there a lot of a difference that you're noticing?
You know, I think things are so much better now. You know, when I was away on my space flight, everything was work related. All the communication was via the air to ground, and that was formal. You know, you couldn't go call your family and have a talk with them about things. I love what the Russians do. When they first get up into space, the first thing they do is set up a press conference, and then they get to talk to their family members. And in the U.S., we were much more, it took us a long time to learn from our Russian partners that incorporating the family is a really good thing. And now, many of the parents on space station get to call their kids at night and read them a bedtime story.
Oh,
so here you are in space, but just like if you have a parent that's on a trip or on a deployment in the military, we can pretty much do the same things. You get a video conference with your family once a week, at least, and you've got an IP phone, so you can call anyone on the ground that you want, whenever you want. You can't call the space station, but they can call you. Yeah. So that would have made things so much easier. And
Absolutely.
So much more fun.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
It would have been fun to be able to talk to your family while you're in orbit. But so the program has really matured in that sense.
Well,
too.
I imagine you're experiencing so much that having a call once a week, once a month, you know, that you're not able to share so much of what you're experiencing and what you're seeing.
Right,
Yeah.
and you know, like you can get into the cupola on the space station, talk to your family, point out the window and say, look where I'm doing right now. Maybe you're going overhead them or something. Because I remember it was a weird feeling. We were in the middle of our rendezvous, and the shuttle nose was pointed straight down to Earth, and the commander was in his seat and I was in the pilot seat, and you could look down 200 miles and you knew that your family was right down there below you, 200 miles, and you're going over, and it seems like you're so close and yet so far away because you really couldn't talk with them.
Yeah, I mean, being in another country can be hard enough. I can't even imagine. Okay, well, one final question. Advice specifically for young mothers who may want to look into becoming astronauts. Anything you could share?
Well, if you look at the people in the astronaut office and check out their backgrounds, you'll find there's a lot of mothers, a lot of fathers. I don't want to leave them out because they make a lot of tough decisions being away as well. But I want young women to know you can have a family and you can have a demanding career. It takes a lot of effort. It doesn't going to just happen. And you will encounter bumps along the way. You may miss something at work that you really want to do, or you may miss something that your child is going to do. But in the end, I think your children will benefit from seeing you doing something that you love.
Absolutely.
And the one thing I did notice was when I was at work, if something was bothering me or I was annoyed by something, I knew I was going to get to go home and see Kristen later, so it didn't. And when I was with Kristen and she got sick or she was fussy or crying, nothing bothered me. It was like, I'm just glad to be here with you. and so in some ways, I think for me, I probably was a better mother because I was happy doing what I'm doing, and I was doing the two things I love most, being a mom and being an astronaut. So you just don't feel like you have to choose.
Anna, it has been an honor and a privilege. I honestly can't tell you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was really fun, and it's fun that to be able to share this for young women growing up now. Thank you so much.